Finding the right audience is extremely important in podcasting and in business. But let's be honest, it's not always easy, especially when you are just starting out. That's why I'm super excited about today's episode of The Power of Podcasting, because we're going to be talking all about how to actually find the right niche for your audience and business. And my name is Nick Palkowski, and I am joined here today by Chris Rudolph to talk all about how you can actually go out there and find your right niche. So Chris, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Nick. This is super exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk all about this. So why don't we start out by just a little bit of who you are and why finding the right niche is so important for you.
Totally. So I'm a business coach, and I work with digital marketers and marketing consultants who are stuck just like hustling around the clock, never, just all the time. And I help them get to their business to six figures fast and spend more time with their family. So I'm a big family guy, so that's a big value of mine.
I love it. So, and what's the name of your business and where can people find you?
Yeah, it's called Freedom Business Family. So you can reach me at freedombusinessfamily.com. And yeah, I love what I do, and I love helping other digital marketing consultants, really experience freedom.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's dive into a little bit of, first of all, what do we mean when we're talking about niches? What actually is a niche?
Yeah, so niche is really the target audience that you are looking for your business. So they're that ideal client that you want to have. And it's really, really important to get specific with who that is, because that influences, how you market the product or service that you develop. And it actually, you can actually talk to a real person, not just, the internet webs out there.
Yeah, and that's extremely important. So when we are talking about niche, we're talking to a real person. And is it the reason that's so important just because it makes it more relatable to that ideal audience? Or what is kind of some of the big reasons why we want to really focus in?
I think a couple of reasons. For one, I actually just saw a study that showed that a person today receives more marketing message, meaning, you have pop-up ads and things that are, messages that are trying to sell you on something. We receive more messages in one day today than people who, lived in the early 1900s did in a whole lifetime. So wow. We have messages coming from all over and are bombarding us. And for us to not go crazy or be able to focus on anything, we develop filters that filter out the messages that we are interested in or we want to hear and forget the rest. So it's really easy to have your message filtered out. So by going very specific, you can get to that right person who has their filters up and really address them and build a relationship with them.
Yeah, I think that's so important. So for you out there in the audience, if you have a podcast, if you have a business, what is your niche? Do you have a niche right now? Have you gotten super focused? Because we're going to dive in here in just a second of some actually action steps that people can take to really focus in on their niche so that they are talking to those right people. Yeah, and so I'm excited to dive into that. So Chris, I guess, where do you see people tripping up the most when they're trying to figure out what the right niche is for them?
Yeah, I see a couple ways. For one, it can be super emotional because these are people that you care about, and it can be really hard to figure out what is the niche that you want to have, and you feel like you have to kind of marry, I'm gonna, just turn over all my branding and my website, and it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot that's invested in it. I really see, someone once had mentioned that, the key to selling something is having the right offer to the right person at the right time. So I think that really holds true. If you really want to sell something, you need to have the right offer to the right person at the right time. And, if you start with just focusing on an offer or the timing, if you don't really know who you're targeting, that's really where it starts. It's hard to really come up with a proper offer and the timing if you don't know where that starts. So I think that's why on the front end of any marketing campaign or you're planning out your business, niche is so important.
Yeah, well, and I also think too, one of the big things that I think sometimes as a business, somebody who's starting a business as an entrepreneur, someone who's coming up with a product that we sometimes forget is often the more important, I guess if you assets, if you will, is actually the audience, is actually the group of people who are following you. It's not necessarily, just coming up with a better mousetrap. It's having a group of people who are actually following you, who are connected to what you're teaching, who are connected to you as a person. And that is really what kind of drives a business, especially nowadays, it seems. That's why influencers are so sought after.
Totally. I actually think it's very rare that someone, when they have a business idea, thinks of marketing and sales first. A lot of times you think about the product or service or the content that you're going to produce first, but that's where you start, and then marketing and sales is an afterthought. But I'm guessing, I know that several of you that are out there watching this are probably friends of mine or good clients, and we know each other, but I imagine a lot of you aren't. But this is what I know about you. I know that you probably have something that's really powerful that you can deliver, whether that is a product, a service, or different content, that you can change the world, or you can change someone else's world. And really the key to doing that, just having the potential to change someone's world isn't going to really impact anyone. They actually have to buy it from you. So I think that is where, the niching comes into play.
Awesome. So let's say somebody's out there, they're just getting started, or maybe they even already have a podcast, already have a business that's rolling, but they're not quite sure if their niche is focused enough. Like, how focused do you need to go? Where do people start? Is just knowing that you're talking to, women enough? Is knowing that you're talking to, where is that kind of line? How focused do the people need to get?
Well, I think if you focus on everyone, you get no one, unless you are Walmart or Coca-Cola, a company that has a lot of a history of a lot of branding where there's a huge awareness. They have huge ad and TV budgets and whole departments that can market for them. If you're not in that camp, I think you want to go as niche as you can.
Which, let's be real, most of us are not in that camp.
I don't think either of the two
No,
of us are in the camp of Walmart. So,
yeah, so how do people, okay, so we kind of mentioned that generally the narrower the better, but how do people actually start going and figuring out how narrow do I need to go?
Yeah, I think I agree. That's a big question that comes up. I think you hear a lot about the importance of having a niche, but not actually much how-to of how to find a niche. So that's something that as I work with my clients on a daily basis, that's something we go a lot into. So I found it's pretty simple if you know what you're looking for. You want to find the sweet spot between what I call the 3 R's, which are results, relationship, and revenue. So what I mean by that is, who can you get the best results with? Really figure that out first. And then, who do you want to have a relationship with? Who would you like to hang out with, even if you had nothing business related? Who do you really like and get energized by is the second key. And then the third thing is revenue. Who can actually pay you what you're worth, or the fees that you want to charge to have your desired level of revenue. What I found is if you're at the sweet spot in the middle of all three of those things, you're in good shape. Now, let's say you have people that you can get results with, and you really like being around, but they don't, they can't generate the revenue you need. That's not sustainable.
Right. Yeah, you need people. Yeah, I think that is a key point, because you definitely. That's why. So when we're starting out with a new client for podcasting, we don't necessarily dive into a lot of the niche stuff that you do quite as much, but we focus in. Okay, what is your kind of ultimate objective? What is the product, service? Do you want to get booked to speak? Do you want to get more coaching clients? Kind of figure out where the revenue comes from, and then it's figuring out, okay, what are a lot of the psychographics, not necessarily demographics or anything like that, but how do they identify themselves? Are they, athletic? Are they CrossFitters? Are they going to a bar class or something? Because those are very different types of personalities in people, and you want to kind of, at least for me, it seems that you want to narrow in as much as possible, just because, like we mentioned, that way you can actually utilize your resources, your time, your current audience, and then your money effectively to really target in. So even if your product is for everyone, you can spend your time in a very specific area and then get bigger results, because that's going to start to compound. Do you agree with that?
I do. I feel, I'm guessing that those of you that are out there, that you have the ability, whether it's your product, your service, or your skill, to help, a variety of people. Some of you might have skills, especially if you're in like coaching or consulting, that could help a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And that may be true. But again, you only have so much time, money, and resources to reach them. Again, there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah.
Go on Facebook or Twitter. How do you really cut through the noise, and really make sure you're not spending your time talking with people about developing a business relationship that aren't good candidates, mm-hmm. or they're tire kickers. You want to spend your time. You only have so much time. You want to spend it in the most valuable way that you can.
No, I think that's a great point. Is a lot of times you need to just simply filter out people, so that way you can really overserve the ideal ones. Because if you're answering calls from people who just can't afford you, like ultimately you're taking away from your ideal clients, or just people who aren't the right fit for whatever reason. You're taking away from those ideal people who you could really make an impact in their business.
Exactly. I mean, do you see that in the podcasting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so part of the reason I do a lot of the podcasting and like free stuff training is simply so that I can help some of those other people who might not necessarily be able to afford the done for you service. Just because that's a certain level of person that can afford that. And I think a lot of the times I see podcasters who will who just almost spend too much of their time serving their non-ideal clients, their non-ideal audience. Yeah, they never are able to really build a solid core group of clients and ultimately raving fans, just because they're trying to serve everybody, even if they're not necessarily their ideal customer.
Definitely. So I know in talking about niching down as narrow and as focused and ultra specific as possible. If you're like me, you're probably starting to sweat a little bit, because it's like, well, am I going to put all my eggs in this basket? And what if they don't like me, or what if they don't respond to my offer, or how do you really know if it's going to work? I like to use this analogy. You almost want to think of it as like dating. You're not going, let's say you meet someone and you have the first conversation. Mm-hmm. You're probably not likely to get down on one knee and propose and ask them to marry you. I know that maybe that happens, on occasion, but normally you're not going to do that. So what I kind of use that as synonymous as, you don't have to think about picking out your business name or totally rebranding your website or creating a new logo, mm-hmm. or a new URL right off the bat. I actually think you should look at it a little bit more like dating. That would be like getting married. Where you change over your entire business that reflects that ultra specific niche. But I recommend maybe start out with a podcast episode, that has those keywords of that specific niche, or a blog post, or a Facebook Live, and see who responds and look for some validation. Maybe if that doesn't, you don't see much of a response, maybe you try something that's a little bit different that you've been thinking of. If it does work, then maybe you can start to put together, in the name of your program or your service, really target it mm-hmm. towards that. And if you get traction there, then maybe you go to the point where you're changing your business name or updating your website. That's how I really see it.
Yeah, well, I actually really like that approach, because, you put together a podcast episode or a blog post or something like that. And what you can do is create some sort of, one-page lead magnet that is essentially going to get people to actually raise their hand and be like, hey, I am interested in this. I want to hear more on this topic. And then you can kind of gauge there in terms of the response you get. So I think that's an excellent strategy and a great way to actually get people to raise their hand and join an email list, where you can then do some sort of beta offer or anything like that and really build as you go.
Definitely.
So, Chris, I know you do a lot of coaching around kind of this topic and helping people really narrow in. So what are, in addition to, testing out with a blog post or something like that, what are some of those first steps you would walk a client through?
Yeah, and this is actually something that I use with my clients every day, and I call it the niche focuser tool, because it's just a simple way that people can really start to put things on paper and really find out, what is that niche. And a lot of times it's very emotional. So I found that when you use old school paper and pen, that it really helps. So we can go through a little bit of that today if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that'd be perfect.
All right.
Let's dive
So so if you're at home or at your office or somewhere nearby, we're going to go old school. So I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil and have it the long way. And what I want you to do is to make 3 columns. So
Okay, 3 columns.
3 columns.
Yes. I'll do this right along with you.
Awesome.
So I can kind of demonstrate.
Awesome. So, 3 columns, and I want you to just number each column 1, 2, and 3. We're getting super high tech here and specific.
1, 2, and 3. I don't know if you can actually see that, but
Awesome. So we're going to go through 6 steps to finding the right niche for you, and this could take maybe as little as 7 minutes to come up with. You know, some people like to mull around it, you know, and think a little bit more about it, but it can happen just that fast.
that fast, awesome.
So step 1 is list out in each of the 3 columns if three types of niches that you're thinking about, that you already have thought about focusing in on. And I want you to get as specific as you can. So not males ages 17 to 48 who live in the upper Midwest of the U.S. I want you to think more like accountants who like to work from home and like surfing.
Okay.
Who are ages 25 to 48. You can even, I know, Nick, you mentioned earlier about the psychographic piece of it. Even think of their mindset a little bit. So that's what I want you to do is think of 3 niches right off the top of your head that you've been considering and write them at the top of each column.
Awesome. So accountants, trying to do this on the fly is not... other examples of great niches, let's say CrossFitters, just because that came to mind. Should that be even more narrow than that, you think?
Yeah, maybe. Is it male or female? What else do they like to do?
Male CrossFitters who like to run. It's probably a narrow set of people. What's another one?
Let's say it's millennials who like to shop at Whole Foods.
I like it.
And have a Netflix subscription. I don't know.
Perfect. Probably describes a lot of them.
Yeah, that maybe isn't too specific. That live in California.
Perfect.
All right, so now that you have your 3 potential niches, we're going to figure out how to pick each one. So the second step, what I want you to do just below in each of the columns is to take each of the 3 potential niches that you laid out, and really we're going to think of their transformation. What's the transformation that they're looking for? What do they really want?
Mm-hmm. So the accountants from home want to be more productive so they can spend more time with their family.
Perfect.
Okay, so that's one. The CrossFitters who run want to improve their 800 time.
Perfect.
And our millennials who shop at Whole Foods, live in California, and have a Netflix account want to spend less time grocery shopping.
Okay, perfect. So you really want to focus in on what's that transformation? What do they really want? And that's probably not even your service or product in its name. It's what is that going to do for them?
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. I think that's great.
So next, we're going to go to step 3, and we're going to take a look at the results. So looking at that transformation in each column, how confident are you that you can get them that transformation? So go through, and the one that you're most confident in, give that a 1. The one that you're second most confident, give a 2, and the one that you're least confident, give a 3.
Okay. And we're going to go right across the board. So 1, 2, and 3 here.
All right. So step 4 is we talked a little bit before about the relationship. Like, do you like to be with this target? Would you like to, if you were at a conference of all these type of people, would you enjoy hanging out with them? So rate them 1 to 3, 1 being the one that you'd like to be with the most, 3 being the least.
I'm going to go with accountants as a 3. I don't know accounting very well, so we're gonna go CrossFitters as a 1, millennials as a 2.
Awesome. So next, we're going to look at that third R, a revenue piece. Like, who can pay you the most? So out of those 3, who can pay you the most? Give them a 1. Down to the least would be a 3.
Interesting. Let's go. Let's say accountants will probably be 1. CrossFitters will say 2. Millennials will say 3.
Okay. So the final piece that I want to bring in is your track record with them. So the first thing with each one of them, have you achieved the transformation that you listed above yourself? Have you done that personally? Mm-hmm. So have you improved the 800-yard dash time? If you have achieved it, give it a 0.
Okay. If you've achieved it, give it a 0.
Look at each one individually.
Perfect.
If you achieved it, a 0. If you haven't achieved it, give yourself a 1.
Okay. So let's say 1, I am not an accountant. So if we keep it very accountant specific, I'm going to say no. CrossFit, yes. Millennials, spend less time grocery shopping. It's debatable. We're going to go with a 1 on that one as well.
And I want to say this. It's not mandatory that you've achieved it yourself, but if you have, you just have a lot more authority. You can speak, like, you know what those emotions were as you went through that process to achieve that. It's powerful. You don't necessarily have to, but it is helpful. So the second part about track record that you want to think of is, have you studied it more than they have? So if you've studied it more than they have, give them a 0. If you haven't studied it more than them, give yourself a 1 in each category.
CrossFit, I can say fairly confident, a 0. Grocery shopping, probably give it a little 0 because I do not like grocery shopping. So the less I do of that, the better. And I'm going to say a 1 for the accountants.
All right. So now that you have in those columns all kinds of your different ratings, what you want to do is add up each column and total it. So just take a minute to do that, to add them up.
7 for the accountants, 5 for CrossFit, 9 for millennials.
All right. So what you're going to do right away is, the hardest thing is, like, how do I choose between this? That's what I experienced when working with clients is, some of the most painful part of that process. So what I want you to do is to take the highest number and just cross it off. Cross off that whole column. They're eliminated.
Cross off the whole column. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So which 2 do we have left?
So for me, we have the CrossFitters and the accountants. We're looking to be more productive. Okay,
so 5 and 7. So 5 for the CrossFitters, 7 for the accountants. So you would go, like, your lowest, it gives you an idea of where you should start with first. And that maybe, if you haven't worked with them or had a lot of history or a validation, that's maybe starting, like, with that first conversation or that coffee date, which could be a blog post or a podcast.
Yeah, and so even when you say coffee date, you're potentially talking about actually, like, finding someone who fits that exact description, going out, talking to them on Skype, or having that kind of actual coffee date, right?
It could be, yeah. If you want to be a little more proactive, you can start talking to that specific niche directly. You get a lot of great immediate feedback. You can also use it from a track side with, a podcast episode or a blog post, and kind of see what you... See, this is kind of your market research.
Yeah, I like that. And so how often do you have to really dive in? Like, what does that look like at what point do you validate that idea and say, hey, I'm getting some traction here. This is something that I should go a little further and really look to go to that next level?
Yeah, I don't think it's an exact science, but I think if you're receiving crickets, or people aren't even willing to meet with you, or at all, you're just not getting any. I think that would be a grounds to, like, look to a slightly different niche. But everyone's a little bit different. It's just kind of in dating. There's some people that they've gone out with 1 or 2 dates with someone and they're ready, like they have found the one that they want to marry, and it's a done deal. And some get down on one knee very, very soon. And then there's others, this can take years. So I think it really depends. I don't have an answer, but the thing is, if you're unsure, just take the next step forward and see if people are validating before you go and redo websites or logos or rename every program that you have. Test it a little bit, and when like, I think especially if they are in that sweet spot of, the 3 R's where you can get them the results, you're confident of that, you like being with them, and you know that they can pay you, I think you'll know. I think that's more of an internal gut type of thing.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think it is going to be a little of that mix of you're at least giving a clear path with this niche focuser, and a clear path to move forward, and then it's figuring out, nailing it down, and then, like you said, using a little bit of that gut instinct. So we quickly ran through that niche focuser. I know you have a resource as well that goes a little more in depth. Is that correct?
Yeah. Actually, before we talk about that, I just want to. Now, you may have just filled that little exercise out, and you have some that are like exactly the same. You might have 2 that are exactly the same, or they're so close, and you just like, how, I can't decide. I know this is like something I see, clients that I work with, and they're like, you can see the stress going on in their face. So here's a really scientific way to do it. So what I'm going to do is, you can just pick out any type of coin. So I'm just going to pull a coin out of my jacket here. And what you're going to do is, each coin has a head side and a tail side, at least if you're in the U.S. I'm not sure of other currencies. But, if you have 2 to choose from, make one of them heads and one of them tails. And what you're going to do is, we're going to flip a coin.
I like it.
So pick out what niche is going to be your heads and which one is going to be your tails, and we're going to do this live here. We're going to pick the one. You'll know exactly which one that you lose after doing this. So
perfect. We had top 2 were the accountants and the CrossFitters.
All right. Which one is heads?
Let's say CrossFitters are heads.
Okay, accountants are tails. So this is how we're going to figure this out. So everyone who's at home, you can play along as well. So I'm gonna flip this, and we're gonna decide who we're gonna niche down to first.
I love it.
All right.
Which is it?
I'm not gonna reveal it yet, because I want you to think, which one were you hoping it would be? Deep down inside, which one are you hoping it would be?
I like it. For me, probably the CrossFitters.
Okay. So at home, I want that. I think there's something in our gut that which one is right, so that hopefully will help you find out the right one for you. I
really like it. I like that. It's because I think that's a great way. I like that little exercise. I think it's a great way because you need to have a real connection to it. Like, you need to have a little bit of that passion. You need to be kind of rooting for that one to come land in if you wanted heads up or whatever, you need that little bit of passion there, that drive to really get through some of the struggles. Because let's be honest, when you're building an audience, building a business, there are a lot of struggles, a lot of challenges that come up. So you need to have a little bit of that fire there for sure.
Exactly. I think the Marines call that the time to suck. It's the time, like when you start things, you have vision for it, you have energy. And then you start trying things, and then you have challenges. I mean, it's inevitable. Anyone who, those of you that have your own business, you have really tough days. And, you're trying to get to what success is for you, but there's kind of that suck portion in the middle where it's gut check time of like, you can feel discouraged or frustrated. And I think it's, if you really care about something and you're passionate about, that's what's going to have you get past that suck time. Because I think if you don't have that passion, you might be right on the verge of breakthrough, but you quit too early. Now, if that isn't the right niche for you and the people you're called to serve, that's a good move. Quitting isn't necessarily always bad, but if it's someone you really care about and they kind of fit those 3 R's, you should continue to press on. So that's what I just want to encourage you with.
No, I really like that. So I know you've done kind of this niche focuser with a lot of different people. What are some of when should people look to like refocus down? Like, should they be doing this on a regular basis? And then also, what are some of the results that you're seeing from people who do find that kind of right niche?
Yeah, there isn't like a set timeline, but anytime you are working with some clients that you just aren't energizing you. That doesn't mean there isn't challenge or,
Mm-hmm.
with that, but you just feel like you may have a couple or several clients who just aren't the right fit for you, and you want to really kind of retool and recalibrate your marketing. I think it's a really good move to do. I would at least do it on a yearly basis.
Okay.
And if you haven't hit that right niche yet, maybe that's every 6 months or so. But that's what I've seen. When you get this right, I found that you cut through the noise, and it makes it a lot easier to really come up with your content idea, because you're talking to a very specific person, and you can develop relationships if you don't already with that group of people. You can follow like them. It's easier to follow them on social or what other content that they like, or thought leaders. Mm-hmm. It just makes it a lot less stressful and makes content creation easier. So I think you also the more target you are with your niche, the more efficient your marketing dollars are going to go if you're targeting on social or ads.
Yeah, you're not wasting money looking at the wrong audience just because you're able to get so specific. Yeah. And like tools like Facebook and things like that are so amazing in their targeting, that if you have that clearly defined niche, you can really make your money very useful there.
Exactly. I think I hear the phrase the riches are in the niches. Yeah, it's a little cheesy as far as the richest part, but I think like if I'm let's say Nick, right now I have a heart issue, and I'm like I'm having some pain here. Are you going to take me to rush me to the hospital and get me to just a general doctor, or or are you going to look for somebody who's a heart specialist?
Right, we're going to go right to the specialist, the person who is super focused. And I think that's key in any aspect of business. That's why you don't want to have too many things going on. You want to be very focused, because you're going to see more results quicker when you are very focused, very dialed into what you're going after.
Yeah, I remember years ago a mentor of mine said specialists eat first, generalists eat last. So, it takes some time to refine and calibrate and get to the right mix. Hopefully we've shared some tools today that can help you do that. But we're in the age of specialty with the internet and search and social media. We're in that age of specialty.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And you mentioned tools. Well, you have I know you have a tool, the Niche Focuser, like a PDF. Where can people find that? Where can people get that to actually dive in a little bit deeper with this?
Yeah, if you go to just nichefocuser.com, it'll go right to it, and you can sign up, and I'll send it to you. And I know we may have went through that exercise pretty fast, but it has templates and walks you right through that process and gives a little bit more of the why. To make that easy, and if you weren't able to catch that the first time, it's something that you can go through on your own time, and hopefully get down to that niche that you can start creating content and serving and making a difference in.
Awesome, I love it. So Chris, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I really appreciate it, and hopefully all of you out there are able to actually narrow down your niche and really focus in so that you can start maximizing both your impact and your income. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Power of Podcasting. We go live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and this was kind of a special episode here just because I got a chance to bring Chris in. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again next week.